The sky was the color of gunmetal when Claire stepped out of the taxi, the weight of her duffel bag pressing into her shoulder. The air smelled faintly of rain and jasmine, the scent that always reminded her of home. After 6 months deployed overseas, she was finally back on her quiet street in Virginia. No calls, no messages, no hints of her arrival. She wanted to surprise her husband, Daniel, the man she had trusted with her heart through the distance and the danger. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her uniform cap and smiled to herself. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, his stunned face, the way he'd lift her off the ground, his voice cracking as he whispered, "You're home." But as she approached the house, something in the air felt off. The curtains were drawn, though Daniel hated darkness during the day. The driveway was empty, except for her mother's old blue sedan. Her pulse quickened. Why was her mother here? Claire adored her mother, but she hadn't mentioned visiting. Still, maybe it was a surprise upon surprise. Maybe they had planned something together. As she neared the porch, she froze. From the backyard came the faint, sharp clatter of a metal bucket. Voices, one raised, one breaking. It was her mother's voice, pleading. Claire moved silently to the corner of the house, her military training turning instinct into motion. She peered through the narrow gap in the fence, and what she saw made her stomach twist. Daniel stood there, his face red with rage, holding a bucket. Her mother, frail and trembling, knelt by the flower bed, clutching her chest. Then, without hesitation, Daniel tilted the bucket and poured its contents, murky, brown, foul-smelling water, over her. The sound of her mother's gasp tore through the air like a scream. For a moment, Claire couldn't move. The image didn't fit in her mind. The gentle man who had written her letters every week, telling her how much he missed her laughter, her courage, her love. The man who had signed each one, "Forever yours." Something snapped. Claire dropped her duffel bag, the thud startling Daniel, who spun around. His eyes went wide when he saw her standing there in her uniform, dripping rain from the brim of her cap, her face pale with fury. "Claire," he stammered, you're home early." "Don't," she said quietly. Her voice was low, controlled, the kind of calm that came before a storm. "What did you just do?" He opened his mouth, closed it again, fumbling for words. "It's not what it looks like. Your mother, she's been..." But her mother's voice broke through the lie. "Don't listen to him. Claire, I only came to water your plants. He said I was ruining his day. Then... Claire's chest heaved. She stepped forward, the gravel crunching beneath her boots. "You poured dirty water on my mother?" Daniel's mask cracked. His voice turned defensive. She was meddling again. "You know how she is, always judging me, always making me feel small in my own house." "In your house." Claire's words sliced through the air. "This house was bought with my service checks, my deployments, my sacrifices." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You think a few tours make you better than me? You left me here alone while you played soldier." "Played soldier?" she whispered, her eyes narrowing. "While you sat here complaining, I was watching people die in front of me. I was fighting so you could sleep safely at night." He took a step back. "You're overreacting." But she wasn't. She was seeing him clearly now, without the distance, without the romantic letters or sweet video calls. The man standing before her wasn't the one she'd married. He was smaller, crueler, a coward hiding behind excuses. Claire turned to her mother, who was still shaking, drenched and humiliated. "Go inside, Mom," she said softly, guiding her toward the door. "You're not staying out here another second." Daniel's voice rose behind her. "Don't you walk away from me, Claire. This is my home, too." She stopped at the threshold and looked over her shoulder. "Not anymore." His face flushed with anger. "You think you can just come back and take everything from me?" Claire didn't answer. She simply went inside, leading her mother to the couch, fetching a towel, her hands trembling but steady enough to wipe the tears off her mother's cheeks. Outside, the rain began to fall harder. She could hear Daniel pacing on the porch, muttering curses under his breath. Her mind raced, years of love, shattered in a single moment. But deep beneath the ache, something else stirred. a sense of purpose, resolve. She wasn't the same woman who had left 6 months ago, and she wasn't about to let this go unpunished. That night, as Daniel slept on the couch, too cowardly to face her upstairs, Claire sat by the window with a notebook in her lap. She began writing not to him, but about him. Every lie, every manipulation, every red flag she'd ignored. The more she wrote, the clearer it became. Her next mission wasn't on a battlefield. It was here, to expose the truth, to take back her dignity, to protect the one person who had never stopped believing in her, her mother. The next morning, Daniel woke to the sound of drawers opening, footsteps moving through the house, and the sharp click of a lock turning behind him. He tried the door. It wouldn't budge. "Claire," he shouted, "what are you doing?" Her voice came through, calm, unwavering. "Something I should have done a long time ago." And then he banged on the door again, louder this time, the sound echoing through the hallway. "Claire, you're acting crazy." His voice cracked, but she didn't flinch. She was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes locked on the phone in her hand. Every vibration, every sound from behind that door fueled something deep inside her, a determination that felt cold and steady. Her mother sat at the table, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea trembling in her hands. The bruise on her wrist had begun to show, faint but undeniable. Claire looked at it and felt another wave of anger rise up. "Did he ever touch you before?" she asked softly. Her mother hesitated, avoiding her gaze. He's been short-tempered lately. After your last deployment, he changed. I didn't want to worry you while you were overseas." Claire's grip on the phone tightened. "You should have told me. I didn't want to make you choose between us," her mother whispered. "You love him." "I loved who I thought he was," Claire said, her voice breaking slightly. "But that man out there, he's not Daniel. Not anymore." A hard knock came again, this time followed by a quieter plea. "Claire, please. Let's talk. You're misunderstanding everything." She turned toward the sound, her jaw tightening. "There's nothing to misunderstand, Daniel. I saw everything." "Your mother provoked me," he shouted back. "You know how she gets under people's skin. I lost my temper, that's all." Claire walked to the door, her boots echoing on the hardwood floor. She stopped inches away, speaking through the wood. "Losing your temper is breaking a glass, not pouring filth over a woman who only came to help." There was silence. Then his tone shifted, softer, coaxing. "Claire, you're tired. You just got back from war. You're emotional. Let me in. I'll explain everything. We can fix this." Her laugh came out short and bitter. "Fix this? You humiliated my mother in her daughter's home, Daniel. There's no fixing that." She walked away, leaving him shouting her name. Her mother reached out a trembling hand, touching her sleeve. "What are you going to do now?" Claire paused, staring out the rain-specked window. "I'm going to make sure he never does this to anyone again." She picked up her phone and started recording a video. Her voice steady and clear, she documented her mother's bruises. Her soaked clothes still drying near the heater, the dirty bucket left outside. Then she went through Daniel's messages. One she had ignored while deployed. There were clues she hadn't seen before. Withdrawn money. New contacts. Short, angry replies. And one message to someone named Mara. "She'll be gone for months. You can stay over." Her chest tightened. It wasn't just cruelty. It was betrayal. Behind the locked door, Daniel was pacing. She could hear the thud of his footsteps. Then, suddenly, the sound of glass breaking. He was trying to force his way through. Claire turned sharply, her instincts kicking in. She grabbed her mother's arm and guided her to the back door. "Out! Now!" They slipped into the rain, moving toward the neighbor's house. Claire knocked urgently, and Mrs. Garrett, an elderly woman who had known Claire since childhood, opened the door with wide eyes. "Claire? Oh my God, you're back. What's happening?" "Please," Claire said, her voice calm but urgent. "Keep my mother here. Don't open the door for anyone but me." Mrs. Garrett nodded without question, pulling her mother inside. Claire turned and ran back through the rain toward her house. She could see Daniel through the window now, his hands pressed against the glass, his face twisted in panic. He shouted something she couldn't hear. Then he disappeared from view. Claire slipped through the side entrance and moved silently toward the living room. The sound of drawers opening again. A flash of movement. Then she saw him, kneeling near the cabinet, stuffing something into a bag. "Planning to leave already?" she said, her voice sharp as a blade. He froze. Slowly, he turned, forcing a smile. "Claire, I was just packing some things until you calmed down." She stepped closer, her eyes burning into his. "You were packing cash, weren't you? The money you took from my account while I was away." He laughed nervously. "You're paranoid. You think I'd steal from you." "I don't think," she said coldly. "I know." He stood, his face hardening. "You've been gone too long, Claire. You don't understand what it's like to be left behind, to wonder if your wife will even come home. I held everything together while you were gone. By abusing my mother? By stealing from me?" He stepped forward, his voice rising. "I sacrificed too. You think you're the only one who's suffered? You were out there being a hero, while I was stuck here, forgotten." Her hand twitched, wanted to strike him, but she forced herself to stay still. "You weren't forgotten, Daniel. You were trusted, and you threw that away." He smirked bitterly. "Trusted? You left me in this empty house, while you ran off to play soldier for glory." Claire's expression turned cold, unreadable. "The difference between you and me is that I fight for people I love. You hurt them." For a second, he seemed unsure. His eyes flickered with something like regret. But then his pride took over. "Fine. Maybe I cross a line. But I'm still your husband, Claire. You need to remember your vows." "My vows were to a man who respected me," she said, "not to a coward who hides behind excuses." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You won't ruin me. You hear me? You start telling people lies, and I'll make sure everyone knows you're unstable. PTSD, anger issues. Who do you think they'll believe? A decorated soldier or the man she accused after coming home from war?" She stared at him for a long moment, and then something in her eyes changed. The fear was gone. All that remained was certainty. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," she said quietly. He scoffed. "You can't touch me." But when she raised her phone, the screen lit up with a red dot. "I already did." He froze. "I've been recording since I walked back in," she said. "Your confession, your threats, all of it." For a second, he was speechless. Then his face twisted with rage. "You think anyone will care? You'll embarrass yourself before you embarrass me." Claire didn't answer. She simply turned and walked toward the door, ignoring the sound of him shouting behind her. The rain had slowed outside, the air thick and electric with tension. She could feel her heart pounding, but her steps were steady. The night had grown deep, the kind of darkness that felt alive, watching, waiting. Claire's breath clouded in the cold air as she stood on the porch, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. The house was silent now, but not peacefully so. It was a silence that came before something broke. The lights flickered once more, then went completely out, as though the house itself had held its breath. Her mother's worried voice trembled from behind her. "Claire, please don't go back in there. Let the police handle it." Claire turned to her, eyes fierce but calm. "He's not just angry, Mom. He's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. I won't let him hurt anyone else." She took one last look at her mother, frail, frightened, but still brave enough to stay, and then she turned toward the storm-dark house. The porch light sparked weakly above her head, illuminating her uniform for a moment before it died again. Her boots made a dull sound on the wet wooden steps as she moved forward, every muscle tense, every instinct alert. The door creaked open with the lightest push. Inside, the air was heavy with damp and the faint smell of mud. Something had been dragged across the floor. Her duffel bag lay open, its contents spilled, her medals, her old letters, her folded uniform shirts, all scattered like debris from a life she no longer recognized. She heard it then, the soft scrape of metal, a faint click. "Daniel," she said into the dark, her voice steady. "You don't have to do this." From the corner of the room, his voice came, lower now, more brittle. "You humiliated me, Claire. You locked me out of my own house. You made me look like a monster." She stepped closer, her eyes adjusting to the dim glow filtering through the curtains. He was standing near the kitchen, his hair damp, face pale, eyes wild. His hand held a wrench, his knuckles white around it. "You did that yourself," she said softly. "I just stopped pretending not to see it." He laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think you're better than me now? Because you wear a uniform? Because you went off to war?" "I don't think I'm better," she replied. "But I know who I am. And you," she took another step forward, "you've forgotten who you were supposed to be." His grip on the wrench tightened. "I loved you, Claire." "Love doesn't look like this," she said, her voice trembling now, but not with fear, with heartbreak. "Love doesn't bruise or belittle. Love protects." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the rain whispering against the windows, the echo of something broken hanging between them. Then, suddenly, he swung the wrench, not fast enough. Claire stepped aside, the metal grazing her sleeve, and with one swift motion, she twisted his arm behind his back, the way she'd done 100 times in training. The wrench clattered to the floor. He struggled, swore, tried to shove her off, but she held him with the quiet power and control earned through years of survival. "You need help, Daniel," she said, her breath ragged. "But not for me anymore." He stopped struggling then, sagging in her grip. "You'll regret this," he whispered. "Maybe," she said, "but I'll never regret standing up for the people I love." She let him go and stepped back, her phone already dialing. When the dispatcher answered, her voice was composed, cold. "This is Staff Sergeant Claremore. I'm reporting an incident of domestic violence and theft. The suspect is in custody." The words tasted like iron in her mouth, but they were true. For the first time in years, they were true. By the time the flashing red and blue lights filled the front yard, the rain had stopped. The neighbors had gathered quietly, watching from behind curtains and porches. Mrs. Garrett stood near the fence, holding Claire's mother close, whispering soft prayers. 2 officers approached the door. One of them, a young man with kind eyes, nodded as Claire stepped aside to let them in. Daniel didn't resist. He didn't shout or cry. He just looked at her one last time, his expression unreadable, somewhere between anger and disbelief, as they let him out in handcuffs. When the door closed behind them, the quiet that settled wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, real. Her mother stepped forward, her hands trembling as she touched Claire's arm. "It's over, sweetheart." Claire turned to her and, for the first time since she'd stepped off that taxi, she smiled. "No, Mom," she said softly. "It's finally beginning." The next few days passed like fragments of a dream. The police took her statement. Neighbors whispered, offering sympathy, casseroles, apologies for never noticing the signs. The video she had recorded, Daniel's confession, the evidence, her mother's bruises, became undeniable proof. The law moved fast when truth had a voice. But even after the papers were signed, after the restraining orders and the hearings, something deeper remained inside her, a quiet ache that wouldn't fade overnight. A part of her still saw that man she once loved, smiling in old photographs, holding her hand at the airport before her first deployment. That version of him no longer existed, but she couldn't erase the memory entirely. She stood by the garden one morning, watching the sunlight hit the wet leaves her mother had tended to for years. The same flower bed where everything had gone wrong was now full of new blooms. Her mother's hands moved gently through the soil, steady again. "Funny," her mother said with a small smile. The rain helped them grow back stronger. Claire knelt beside her, pressing her hands into the earth. "Maybe that's what pain does," she said quietly. "It breaks things down so we can grow something better." Her mother looked at her, eyes soft. "What will you do now?" Claire thought for a moment. "I'm done running toward battlefields," she said. "It's time I start building something worth protecting." Later that week, she began volunteering at a center for women and families in crisis. The first time she walked through those doors, she felt the same pulse of courage she used to feel before a mission. But this one was different. This wasn't about fighting an enemy. It was about saving lives quietly, one story at a time. One evening, as she sat helping a young woman fill out a report, She caught a glimpse of herself in the glass window, strong, composed, still wearing the faint shadow of her uniform the way she carried herself. But her eyes were different now, war-torn, yes, but alive. Outside, the world was calm. The rain had stopped days ago, replaced by sunlight that spilled golden across the rooftops. Her mother waited for her on the porch every evening, 2 cups of tea ready, one for her and one for the daughter who had finally come home, not just from war, but from the prison of her own silence. As dusk fell, Claire stood at her window, watching the horizon fade into hues of violet and gold. The ghosts of the past no longer haunted her. They were part of her story, woven into the strength she carried now. She had faced cruelty, betrayal, and fear, and she had walked through them all, unbroken. A soft breeze rustled through the open window, carrying the scent of jasmine again, the same scent that had greeted her the day she came home. But now, it no longer reminded her of pain. It smelled like peace. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from an unknown number flashed briefly, then vanished, a blank text. She stared at it for a moment, her pulse steady. Maybe it was him. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, it no longer mattered.